Now, we've been through this before, where you've been somewhere interesting and then you've brought that energy to the podcast. And we were just chatting before we started recording, and I feel like even more so than the Giantess convention, where you were just telling me about is 100% you.
I went to the Medieval Torture Museum in Chicago. Look at the little
What?
guy. For those listening instead of watching on YouTube, there is a cartoonish executioner on a tote bag, and it says Medieval Torture Museum Private Collection.
Why is there a medieval torture museum in Chicago, a place
It's
that is only around about 150 years old?
I mean, it's I don't know, but it was remarkably chintzy, and it just was like a bunch of bargain bin mannequins being put into, like, the examples of all of these medieval torture devices, and it was awesome. It was 100% my shit. Like, anybody who knows me, like, museum, history, weird devices, and kitsch. Uh, it was just beautiful. I have several pictures of me gleefully holding up really terrible, like, chastity belts.
Well, it will shock and surprise you, Earthlets, to hear that actually this does have relevance to this episode
Somehow, my
of
god.
In Orbit every Wednesday, where we are talking the top tyrants of the 2000 AD multiverse. This is In Orbit every Wednesday.
Get 2000 AD now. Get.
Borak Thang Athletes, welcome to In Orbit every Wednesday. I am Molch-R, she is KLO-E, and we're back for another half an hour or so of chat about the galaxy's greatest comics and also things around. Talking about torture, I am, like so many of us, being tortured by the environment because it is like 32 degrees outside. I'm English. I'm not built for this. And so you may hear the fan going on in the background and the tweeting of birds outside. I'm very sorry. I could not endure like half an hour or 40 minutes locked in this room with the window closed and no fan. I'm sorry.
Y'all
You'd
really
see me
can't
physically
hang.
melt.
Y'all really can't hang when it comes to heat, it's true.
Well, that's the whole debate on the internet, isn't it? That actually what England's going, well, what Britain is going through at the moment is kind of like our buildings are not built for this.
Oh,
We
yeah.
have no AC. It's and it's a different kind of heat to what you get in the States quite often. So it's unpleasant. It's very unpleasant. I am reminded of one of my favorite Future Shocks, which is the Alan Moore Jesus Redondo one of the uh,
The Vacation on the
kind of holiday,
Sun?
the Vacation on the Sun thing. I think that's still available to read for free on our website somewhere. But it feels very pertinent now. But welcome to In Orbit every Wednesday. As always, we are not going to talk about this week's prog. I swear we will get around to it. I promise. It's all good stuff. Particularly as the new Judge Dredd series with Rob Williams and R.M. Guerrero has started
Yay.
up, which is very, very good. Prog 2431 is out this week. I'm also going to give a shout out to the fact that it's coming up to San Diego Comic-Con. You may have seen us posting about the Judge Dredd statue, which has been co-designed by Jock, who's one of our biggest talents to come out of
It's Doc.
2000 AD. That is available for pre-order now. It's also available for pre-order at San Diego. It's very important you understand it's not going to be available once that pre-order closes. It's not going to be available in shops. It's not going to pop up on our web shop and sit there and so you can think about it. If you don't pre-order, you don't get one. It's a hefty chunk of cash and of statue. I've seen the prototype. It's sat in the office. It's huge. But don't miss out. It's amazing. It's the first kind of proper statue that we've that we've worked on with an artist, and it looks absolutely spectacular. So
And if you are going to be at San Diego picking up said statue,
you'll
somebody
get to
is
see
going to be heading up
Chloe.
the 2000 AD booth. So, yeah,
Mm.
please, any listeners making it out to San Diego, come and say hello. Come and say hi. I'm going to be mixing it up with the best of them. And
I mean, bearing in mind that I don't particularly want to run the risk of being arrested at customs, I will not be there this year. My first, aside from the pandemic, well, aside from lockdowns, my first non-appearance at San Diego for many a moon. But you'll be in capable hands with Chloe. It's worth remembering, if you're a 2000 AD subscriber, you get a 25% discount off
ooh,
of the statue. If you are an attendee at San Diego, you also get a 25% discount off. So make sure you grab one of those. If you're going to San Diego, make sure you go along to booth 2121 to see Chloe and our amazing volunteers who are plugging the Molch-R shaped hole.
it takes a lot of us. You're really tall.
Yeah, 5 of you in a long trench coat. Just going,
Yeah,
Borak Thung.
we're just gonna stack on top of each other and do a Mecha Shiva type of. But
Anyway,
you not making it to San Diego and the reasons why you are not making it to San Diego, very understandable reasons that is kind of the perfect pivot point for what we are actually talking about
yeah.
today.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you messaged me to say we're doing this, whether I like it or
Yeah.
not. So I technically absolve myself of all responsibility for what
Well,
proceeds.
after getting enough messages saying there's going to be a surprise, and getting shit sprung on me, I did kind of I'm getting my retaliation by saying, "Nope, this week we're talking about this." So this is you getting your comeuppance for,
So kind.
yeah,
So
yeah,
kind.
it works out.
Well, in which case, you explain what we're talking about this week.
So this week we are going to be kind of talking about the idea of tyranny, authoritarianism, all of that.
Apropos of nothing.
Yeah, apropos of nothing, except for the absolute tools on YouTube who like to call out the No King shirt that you've literally been wearing for years, Mike. But that has a whole new meaning now. And it was inspirational more than anything else. So thanks, Dix. And we we're here to talk about why if you're reading 2000 AD, then you're already pretty close to the discussion of that is extremely prescient right now in international politics. So,
Well, it is something that people always talk about with 2008. Like, quite often, they'll describe it. Especially if they're talking about Dredd, they'll describe it as dystopian and all that stuff.
yeah.
But there is this greater thread through 2000 AD history, which is anti-authoritarian, which is the kind of uh, characters that seek to challenge, undermine, fight back against various forms of tyranny. And so it seems, as you say, prescient to kind of go through some of the fantastic grotesques of almost 50 years of 2000 AD, and the characters where it is lampooning, where it is spearing, where it is kind of piercing the notion of a tyrant. Because I mean, there's the obvious ones. There's the obvious ones, and that's what our list is going to be, really, isn't it?
I mean, for the most part, yeah. Like I've made the joke on several occasions that I can't read any of the Judge Cal stories anymore because I understand right now, currently sitting where I am in Oregon, what it is like to be ruled by someone who has made a goldfish into their right hand man. Like
Surely it's only a matter of time. Surely,
it's
surely.
I mean, we're already there. We already got some guy in charge of my healthcare getting ratatouilleed around by a worm. So, you know, we're we're it's like a half step below.
All right. Well, let's go through our favorites. So we'll build to my favorite. I think.
Okay. You build to your favorite?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Like that would be the big one. But there's obvious one because we had a discussion about Strontium Dog the other
Yeah.
week. The most obvious example,
Yes.
and one that's particularly prescient when one is dealing with themes of othering of marginalized people within the society.
Mm-mm.
It's Nelson Bunker Kreelman, who is the despot who persecutes the mutants in Strontium Dog. Um, and it's so fascinating that a character that's specifically came out of the Thatcher age,
Mhm.
John Wagner and Alan Grant kind of birthed this character who isn't just a despot on his own. He has a fundamental connection to the lead character. And again, spoilers. If you've not read Strontium Dog, if you know nothing about Strontium Dog, go and read some because
Yeah.
otherwise this we'll just be running around in circles. But where you have a mutant Johnny Alpha, and it turns out through all the journeys, through all the travails that he's been on, that he is the son of a despot. Creelman's bigotry runs through him like a stick of letters through a stick of rock. Um, and it's mad that it's still so prescient.
Yeah, still works. And we will continue to go on ad nauseum about that theme across Strontium Dog, but it's the one that sticks out the best because you can kind of um, it's Strontium Dog is so good in its choice of doing mutants the way that it did because you can kind of apply it to any group.
Mm,
It's not one particular subgroup of people that can feel mirrored by these stories. It is very much applicable to everybody. And I especially having it's a fiction trope having like the ultimate bad guy have a tie in with the protagonist. That's pretty standard. It's understandable, but in the context of this, it's makes it even heavier, especially when the story is able to continue
mm.
with that intensity, um, and on that same subject, even well after spoiler alert, even after that is not that bad person is no longer the focal point.
Yeah, yeah, and it's something that happens so late in the
Yeah,
strip's history as well. You get to know this guy, Johnny Alpha, over this long period of time, and then there's this bombshell,
yeah,
and it takes the bigotry of somebody like Creelman. It takes the persecution of the mutants and makes it personal,
mhm,
and that's really fundamental. Really, is one of the things that seems to be the case is at the moment is we're losing the ability to be empathetic. We're losing our
mhm,
empathy for people who are not immediately like us, and what that does is challenge the whole dynamic of the bigotry
mhm,
within Strontium Dog. So it's not just background radiation. It's not just
yeah,
justifiable or something you don't have to worry about. It makes it key to understanding and empathizing with the lead character because he has the mother of all daddy issues.
yeah,
um and as a despot, what really strikes me about Creelman is, like most tyrants, is how banal and ordinary he is. He is just he's in the Hitler mold of tyrants. In
he's a
that
loser.
he's a loser.
Yeah,
He's a
he's a
loser,
loser.
and that's something that John and Alan. I've always felt, and I'm not. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn. I've always felt that was Alan's raison d'être,
Yeah,
is being able to point at the core of fascism within these characters, of these characters, and say this is what it is. They're just boring losers.
They're dorks, like,
Um,
they're dorks and
yeah.
losers, and it feels even more, spot on right now that, like, these massive dorks are are also so capable of convincing people that they're right.
Mm, mm, yeah.
And how even when maybe they are not the spotlight of this mindset, of this movement, of the oppression, that that still carries on well
Mm,
afterwards because they have managed to convince a whole other bunch of losers that this loser was the right one and that she'll follow him around like little ducklings.
mm.
And yeah, it's it's too spot on, and it's been the running gag for some time that the delightful creative team behind so many of these books have weird, like, future projecting powers, and
Mm.
my god, to what extent, and also, please stop. You know?
Well, I think one of the key things about Creelman is he's slightly different than a lot of the other kind of tyrannical figures and the kind of tyrannies that you get in 2000 AD, in that the strip goes out of its way to reinforce that the Creelman regime is a bottom up tyranny, in
Mhm.
that it's ordinary people who are doing the
Yeah,
tyrannizing. Um,
carrying it out.
Yeah, and so it is that the kind of the banality of evil, particularly, it's always, I always think we've been robbed of a Magneto Nazi Hunter movie, um, with actor's name,
Which one?
Fassbender, Michael
Yeah, oh.
Fassbender.
Oh,
Because there's that amazing
yeah.
scene. I can't remember whether it's at the beginning of First Class or Days of Future Past or whatever, where he goes after those two
Yeah.
Nazis in Argentina, um, and like I'd have watched hours of that, to be honest with you. Um,
I mean, yes. That also seems like it would take off really well at the moment,
yeah,
but
yeah. But the with Creelman, I mean, and I've mentioned it before. There is that wonderful frame in Strontium Dog where it's all the Creelers
Mhm.
stood there in their black tunics with the symbol on, and then the next one it's the same people but with police uniforms on. And so the strip deals with a very with a very realistic, with a very real sense of not just that kind of tyrannical fascism, but also how that endures, how the impact of that
Yeah.
continues, because the bigotry, when Creelman dies, as you say, the bigotry doesn't go away.
Mhm.
It remains. The evil that great men do lasts long after them.
Yeah. And
Great.
yeah, oh, woo, really
Yeah.
excited. The I mean, the thing about Strontium Dog, but not just Strontium Dog, so many 2000 AD stories is
Mm,
that it does kind of cover that. It is a focal, like you said, so many of them focus on a dystopia, which is a cornerstone of sci-fi and fantasy.
mm,
But this does it in a way where it doesn't necessarily this is gonna be me untangling a yarn ball in my brain as I speak, so bear with me, everyone. Um,
okay.
it is it's morality that is not being spoon-fed to you,
Mm, mm,
but it is. What it is, though, is that you're not being told what it tastes like, if that makes sense. It's
yeah.
you're being fed this morality, you're being told, like, you're being shown that these things, these themes that are even being mirrored in real life are terrible.
Mm, mm,
But
mm,
they are not telling you that in the story. They're telling you that in the way the story feels, in hopes that you are going to be a decent enough person to parse out that this is not how it should be.
mm.
Yeah.
It's very much show and not tell.
Yes, that's what it but that's a much simpler way of putting it, Christ.
It's worth pointing out to our many listeners and viewers. It is like 8 o'clock in the morning where Chloe is at the moment. Like I'm sat here. I'm like half an hour away from finishing work. It's boiling. I'm going to go to the pub afterwards. But poor Chloe is has a full day ahead of her. So that I think that probably explains a lot. Um,
Every week, every
but yeah, it's kind of moving on to something like Torquemada, which is a different kettle of fish.
very
Because that very much is a top down,
Mhm.
or at least that's how it's presented in the scriptures, a top down kind of tyranny, much more in the kind of Mussolini vein. I
I
think.
was about to ask, like, is there you're my political guy go-to for this sort of stuff. Is there a terminology for that? Like an actual term for like bottom down tyranny versus top down tyranny?
I mean, there probably is. I mean,
You're like, funny you should ask. I have 27 books about it.
I mean, you're not wrong. Timothy Snyder and Robert Paxton talk a lot about the kind of different modes. I can't remember. Was it? Oh, I can't remember now. Um, there was a very eminent writer whose name has completely left me, who basically said if it's like trying to nail jelly to a wall,
Oh,
trying to
okay.
nail down what fascism is. Um, because every time you find an example, it's different to
Yeah.
another example. But Ezra Pound, I think it was, talked about the different. It's just like combinations of things.
Okay.
So if it's fascism and monarchic and Catholicism and monarchicism, it's Franco. If it's fascism with a anti-city hardcore ethno-nationalism, then it's Nazi, and you can kind of
Okay. All right.
chop and change.
There's
So there are,
there's
yeah,
things there's umbrellas under the umbrellas under the umbrellas.
yeah. But that's the nature of fascism. It adapts itself to our living conditions, to borrow a
Mhm.
phrase from The Fifth Element, which I think I watched for like the 100th time this week. Anyway, but yeah, with Torquemada, of course, Nemesis the Warlock, it is a global tyranny where
Yeah.
humankind have been forced to live underneath the surface of the earth in these great tunnels. So Earth has become termite. Um, and it's one of the things I always love about Pat's work is the little word plays.
Mhm.
So termite, termite, obvious connotations, but then he turns it into termite, termight,
Yep.
which conjures up and mixes around with this notion of the fragility of power. The Yes, you'll say it's termite, but
Yeah.
it's still the word that means you know
Yeah. Well,
little worker creatures.
I mean, that's, it's a weird version of reclamation in a weird way
Mm, mm,
too,
mm.
in that sense. I mean, Pat's just really good at wordplay. All of it, like, every strip that he's ever touched has really good wordplay in it. But that's a good example, I think, at least, of, like,
Mm.
using, you know, terminology to reclaim things, especially in that particular world, which is so
Yeah.
horrifying.
And you can't separate Nemesis the Warlock from Pat Mills and Kev O'Neill's great hatred and antipathy towards the Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church.
Yep.
Both had quite bad experiences.
Yeah.
Pat in particular has written quite extensively about the abuse that he suffered and witnessed at a Catholic boys' school
Yeah.
in East Anglia. Um, and for that feeds into this notion of this top down, this hierarchy, this downward facing hierarchy of the guy at the top, and then you've got the bishops and the priests
Mhm.
and the prelates and everything going down and down and down on top of this poor, suppressed, easily manipulated population.
Mhm. Well, and two, and especially because of the inclusion of the deep-seated, hatred of the Catholic Church
Mm.
for understandable reasons, especially in Pat's case. The it is also a good discussion to look at in terms of, religion used as just religion in general, like an
Mm,
over application of religion used as a form of tyranny. Like, and the forcing forcing it upon everybody else, and that becoming its own entirely separate form of authoritarianism outside of the more political authoritarianism, and you put them all together. And honestly, I mean, even now, like applying something like looking at Nemesis to how we're seeing the world today, it's kind of scary
mm,
because it is a
mm.
why is that allowed to happen?
And I mean, a perfect example. I mean, this is a little later when Brian Talbot had taken over on
Mm.
art duties. There's the wonderful arch bigot who
Yes.
Torquemada brings in. And I also just want to make the note of like it only occurred to me the other day that all of like Torquemada's mask is meant to be like a Gothic spire, like the
Mhm.
top of a. He's literally a walking
Yeah.
cathedral, which is that strip is still surprising me all these years
The
later.
symbolism
Um,
is not lost on us.
exactly, exactly. Um, but you get the bigot who's like, well, we've gotten rid of all the aliens who were blamed for all of humanity's woes, the
Mhm.
deviants. Who's next? And he goes, well, we thought about ginger people, we thought about short people, but
Yeah.
so we've alighted on freckled people. And was it the frecks are the new deviants? And if there was a more on the button kind of moment for now. It's that the kind of this the searching for this enemy within,
You
in
have to
order
find
to
a new
distract.
one at every point because if you don't,
Yeah,
you lose power, so there has to constantly be somebody to crush under your thumb.
yeah. And the thing is, it wasn't. It was when Torquemada was presumed dead. So I can't remember the character's name, but brought them in, and there's just this moment when he's the guy who's kind of replaced Torquemada is just looking in a hand mirror, just sort of checking his face for any and Brian Talbot draws it so well. And the Archbigot has a kind of mock South African accent because, of course, this was published when apartheid
Mhm.
was still in place in South Africa, and it's so wonderfully all tied together. So for me, Torquemada is the most theatrical
Yes.
of the tyrants of 2000 AD. The one where it is just there's no
But
verisimilitude. There's no attempt to hide the fact this is pure bigotry. It's a state built on bigotry.
it's the most camp version of yeah.
It's the only tyranny that has a massive penis bridge as part of its architecture. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, um,
Then hmm, then
so
maybe
sorry.
that'll get you reading it. That's what
um, but just I want to come on to what we know is probably the best in inverted commas tyrant in 2000 AD, and for me, he's probably the most interesting because of the interaction of his tyranny with the tyrannical system that birthed him, but decided he'd gone too far.
Mhm.
Which, of course, is Judge Cal from
Yeah.
Judge Dredd, the day the law died, who, as you've already pointed out, is already and still enduringly, disturbingly prescient and on the nose. Um, and for those who haven't read Day the Law Died, basically a senior member of the leader of the SJS, the Special Judicial Squad, who are meant to be the regulators of the judge system, um, effectively stages a coup and then steadily goes mad in the vein of Nero, in the vein of so many tyrants before and even today. Appoints a fish as his deputy judge. Is that wonderful moment when Judge Fish goes bloop
What
and Cal says, "Well, you heard him. Get on with it." Uh, all these sycophants just stood there going, "Oh no!" Like we don't know how to talk this one out. He sentences the whole city to death. because
Mhm.
they don't turn out at his kind of birthday parade or whatever it is. Um,
That
he
feels
he
way too right? Oh, boy.
right, right. Um, yeah, he brings in alien mercenaries to persecute because he can't rely on the judges really. Um, and he builds the West Wall. Like the imagery of the Great Wall that goes all the way along the side of Mega City One with the cursed Earth on the other side comes in actually relatively late in Judge Dredd history. Like it's not really portrayed that much. That there's a bubble. There's references to some kind of border, to some kind of wall, but this is the West. This is the mile high thing that's built in 2 weeks, and the guns point inwards, and it's almost too easy to draw comparisons to a certain individual.
Yeah, almost. Almost. I mean, it's one of the best Judge Dredd storylines to me,
Hmm.
period. But it's, kinda it's almost bear with me, it's not dissimilar to what you were saying about, banality in
Hmm.
Tyranny with Strontium Dog, except it's more about, here is somebody who is clearly mad. And
Hmm.
here's somebody whose ideas for what is best, I'm saying this with bunny quotes for anybody listening, what is best for the people, the ideas are not just cruel, but
Hmm.
are stupid, actually stupid, and this is why comics is such a beautiful outlet to have these kinds of discussions, because you can make it over theatrical and make it absurd to the point where, it works in the comic strip, but it also doesn't is not all that dissimilar to what you do see in real life.
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
the ideas are so stupid, but because they're so stupid, they get away with it, and then it's worse.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's if you can get away with the stupid, harmful things, then you can get away with the worst of it.
Yeah, and with Cal, it's the pettiness of it.
Yeah, that's kinda what I
Like
mean.
he's a small-minded man who's
Yeah.
gone crazy, whose ego is far greater than
Mhm.
than it deserves to be. Um, but his concerns are small
Yes.
because they're just about him as an
Mhm.
individual. He's not actually thinking about world domination. So it's notable, and it's an interesting parallel we could get into in some depth down the pub. That uh, during his reign, it's all about for those of you who follow any kind of in-depth thinking, it's all about the colonial boomerang.
Oh
But
god.
all the guns are pointed inwards. He's
Yeah.
not going off and attacking other mega cities. He's not that kind of megalomaniac. What he is, again, somebody with terrible parent issues. But um,
It's a
what he
bizarre
wants,
narcissism.
it's 100% narcissism. And for me, that's I think why Cal is probably the greatest 2000 AD tyrant is because he pricks that petty narcissism
Yeah.
of authoritarians. And that's the case with Mussolini, with
Mhm.
Hitler, with Stalin, with
Pol Pot.
you know Pol Pot, Mao Zedong. We've 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 kind of heavily loaded the early to mid 20th century there, but
Yeah.
but ever since the they are small men who have an inferiority complex, and so that cruelty that you mentioned, as the phrase goes, I think it was Adam Sewer who said, the cruelty is the point
Yeah. Yes.
because that's the only way they can express their own
It's the only
psychological shortcomings.
Yeah, it's the only way that they get to feel something, and the only way, well,
Mm,
when the ego takes over, rational reason or critical thinking, it's the only thing that gives them the buzz.
yeah,
So,
yeah. No, 100%, 100%. We could probably keep going for at least another hour on this one. But Earthlets, tell us what your favorite tyrant or tyranny is in the comments on YouTube. I'm sure there's lots of opinions.
Do I get to plug something?
Go ahead.
If you would like to read more about Judge Dredd, tyranny, fascism, the police state, I highly recommend picking up a copy of I Am the Law, How Judge Dredd Predicted the Future by one Mr. Michael Molch-R. It is actually I saw somebody plugging the book on Blue Sky the other day, and it really it is incredible, Mike. I'm not trying to stroke your ego, but like it is a remarkably poignant book on basically everything that we've talked about in relation to Judge Dredd and what we've been seeing over the past forever. And it's remarkable, and I recommend anybody who was invested in what we were talking about in this episode to pick up a copy at any bookstore.
Bless you. I did not have to pay her to say that, which is always quite nice.
You can't afford me.
No, that is true. That is true. But yes, thank you. It's one of the reasons why I love 2000 AD is because it deals with these incredibly complex ideas in a way that's utterly readable, enjoyable, and plants a seed. Like I was saying on Blue Sky, that I always hate this kind of notion that if it's not, I think it was Tegan O'Neill who criticize people who go, just because something isn't a literal gun pointed at a literal tyrant doesn't mean it's not useful. And I said, you wouldn't criticize a seed just because the tree doesn't grow overnight.
Yes.
So it's all about planting these ideas into people's minds. It's one of the reasons why I love 2000 AD.
Yeah. And this is not a political podcast by any stretch of the imagination, but 2000 AD is so closely linked to a lot of political ideals.
Mhm.
And it's important to talk about. It's fun to talk about. And it's, you know what? We're not trying to tell you how to feel about this stuff, but we are more than fucking happy to show you.
Well, I personally don't think it should be controversial to say no to tyranny, but
fuck us, right?
Your mileage may vary, since it's this world. Anyway, I'm sure the comment thread is going to be incredibly rational and very calm and peaceful. Don't make that gesture. We'll be back in 7 days' time, Earthlets, assuming that I don't get fired and she doesn't get cancelled. For more chat about the galaxy's greatest comic. If you've not read any of these fantastic stories, Strontium Dog Search and Destroy, the Search and Destroy books are available both physically and through the 2000 AD app and also the 2000 AD web shop. The Nemesis, the definitive Nemesis the Warlock, is the ongoing series, and get that one in print. I really like, and get the hardcovers as well with the beautiful kind of gold embossing. And The Day the Law Died is Judge Dredd: The Complete Case Files number 2.
Is it? I think you're right. I think it's 2. I think you're right.
I'm sure it is. Yes, Complete Case Files number 2. You'd think I'd know that off the top of my head, wouldn't you? I did. I got it right. I just doubted myself. But yes, thank you so much for tuning in, Earthlets. Do let us know what you think as I'm sure you will, on the comment threads, but also thrillcast at 2000ad.com. That's thrillcast, all one word, at 2000ad.com. We should be back in a week's time. I've been Molch-R. This has been KLO-E. This has been In Orbit every Wednesday. And Splendid Verthrig, Earthlets.
See you next week.
Get 2000 AD now. Get to.
Well, thanks for joining us on In Orbit every Wednesday, Earthlets. Make sure you like and subscribe and go along to 2000 AD, where you'll be able to subscribe to 2000 AD and the Judge Dredd magazine. Sign up to our newsletter and you'll get hundreds of pages of free comics to download. And download the app for your Apple and Android devices. Now, don't forget, Earthlets, this is the 2000 AD universe. We just live in it.